My wedding ring had been sitting in the drawer of my nightstand for several months. I couldn't wear it anymore because my marriage was over. But I couldn't bring myself to get rid of it. So it sat there in the drawer in limbo while I wrestled with what to do with this symbol of commitment and love that had become a reminder of loss and failure. When my wife and I first got married, she would occasionally sing songs to me. Just little lines, snippets of a song when it occurred to her. And the one she sang to me the most was the one that I loved the most. She would sing, "You Are My Sunshine." And when she got to the last line, she'd always stop and look down and then look up at me and sing plaintively, "Please don't take my sunshine away." And it would melt my heart every time. And I could feel in my bones that we were meant to be together forever. And I told her, "You can sing any song to me you want, honey. There's just one I ask that you not. Hit the road, Jack." One warm spring Friday evening, I got home and my wife said those words that everyone dreads: "We need to talk." And 2 hours later, I was making plans to hit the road and find somewhere new to live. Those first weeks after I moved out, I found a new place very quickly. They were probably the darkest of my life. I remember leaving work and being stopped at a stoplight and just wanting to curl up into a ball and disappear. I'd never felt like that before. And I went back to the room that I was renting in a townhouse. And I spent most of my time there the first couple of weeks just sulking. And when the thoughts got to be too much, I'd jump on my computer. I'd play games, I'd catch up on the news. I reconnected with a bunch of friends that I had made online a couple of years before, and they were good for some frivolous fun. After a couple of weeks, my friends here in real life in Virginia decided that I'd been licking my wounds long enough. And they took me out for drinks, or they'd have me over to their house for dinner, or someone else would take me to the movies. And it was good to get back out into the world again. But these were all things that I had done with my wife in places where we had gone together. So the specter of that was always hanging over me. And after a few weeks of this, I realized I needed to really break the mold, try something entirely new. And so, fully embracing the irony of it, I decided to hit the road, Jack, and take a trip, all by myself, something I'd never done. So I was looking around, casting about for what I might do. Now, that group of online friends that I mentioned, we were all fans of the show Mystery Science Theater 3000. And as it happened, there was going to be a convention in a few weeks. And a bunch of them were going. So I got my ticket, booked a room, and headed to Minneapolis. And I had a great time with them. I was able to forget my real life and all the trouble that was in it. And they were warm with me, and some of them knew what was happening. And something very odd happened. On 2 separate occasions, I was invited to weddings. There were 2 couples that had met on this online forum, started dating, and were going to get married that year. And somewhat counterintuitively, I accepted both invitations. I love a wedding. And I thought it would be just the thing to pick me up. I'd still be there with all of my friends, get to see them, and hang out and have fun. The first one was in Pennsylvania, right over the Maryland line, so I drove there the day of the wedding. I got caught in traffic on 270 and missed the ceremony, but I made it in time for the reception, and I had a fantastic time, or so I'm told. Apparently, I wasn't really ready to see a happy couple because I drank a lot of beer and for one of a handful of times in my life got blackout drunk. My friends stuffed me into a cab to make sure I made it to the hotel I was staying in that night. And as I drove home to Fairfax, nursing a wicked hangover, I thought maybe it's not the best idea to go to another wedding so soon. But this wedding had something that the first one didn't. This other couple was getting married in Chicago, my hometown, a place I adore. And so I said, you know what? For this, I'll do it. I can risk it. Plus, it was a couple of months later. I figured it would work out fine. So, mid-October, get on a plane at Dulles, fly into O'Hare. As it happens, traffic was stacked up over O'Hare, so I got to circle the city at night half a dozen times and just look at the gorgeous skyline, one of my favorite sights in the world. I got to the wedding, and my friends, knowing how the previous one had gone, watched out for me. When they saw me getting lost in thought, they'd tell me a joke. When I reached for a beer, they would hand me a glass of water. And when I seemed to be getting down, somebody would grab me and take me out on the dance floor. So I had a much better time at this second wedding. And as I was reflecting on it, sitting in O'Hare waiting to fly home, I tried to figure out why. Well, obviously my friends were watching out for me and that felt great. But the other part was I was here in Chicago, a place that I dearly loved. And I started to think about the fact that my family moved out here when I was 12, and I felt that I'd lost a part of my identity at that time. I was a Chicagoan, and I couldn't say that anymore. But through the years, I came to realize that I had lived in Chicago. That would always be a part of me. And when I realized that I'd come to terms with that, something clicked in my mind. And as I winged my way back over the Midwest and flew into Dulles, I had an idea of what I could do. The next Saturday morning I got up, I opened that drawer, and I took the ring out, put it in my pocket. And I drove to our old apartment. My wife had moved out a couple of months earlier after the lease ran out. I walked up some stairs and stood in front of the door of our apartment. And I took the ring out and held it. And I thought about all the good things we had had together and all the love we had shared. And yes, it wasn't something that was going to continue, but it was something that happened, and it's something that mattered. And after reflecting on that for a moment, I bent down and I put the ring on the threshold to that apartment. And I walked away. Now, I can't imagine what the new residents of the apartment thought when they saw a wedding ring on their threshold. And I have no idea what they did with it. But in my mind, it's still there. And it stands as a monument to something that was lovely and was important, and as a wish that my ex-wife could find new sunshine.